the Parti Québécois isn't just talking about sovereignty anymore. They are actively drafting the operational framework for a sovereign state. This systematic blueprint brings the constitutional question back to the forefront, challenging a federal system that is already struggling with internal fiction. So let's have a look at what's going on here, Eddie. It leaves a lot to be desired at times. You know, I shake my head on some of this stuff, but the PQ, one of the key areas that they've put out as far as this roadmap is concerned is the issue of currency.
Right.
And what they are proposing is a 3-phase transition to a Quebec-based currency. Phase 1, temporary use of the Canadian dollar. I would hope that Ottawa would say that's a hard no. The dollar's going to take a beating as it is with this referendum if the PQ forms government and pushes forward with a referendum in its first term, so sometime within the next 4 years, our dollar is going to be in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And investment will start flowing out of Quebec. It already has, actually, again. And also out of Canada. Because you've got the PQ in the east, and you've got the uproar in Alberta in the west.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that's an issue. No, you want to separate? Then you better have a plan for your own currency in place on day one, period. Sorry, that's the way it is. Phase 2, they'd have an anchored Quebec currency. In other words, something that they would start phasing in. And of course, phase 3 would include a flexible, independent currency. Well, you better be prepared if you were successful in winning a referendum and starting the move to break this province away from Canada. You better be prepared to have your flexible, independent currency ready on day one, the day after the vote.
The birth of the Laurentian dollar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, the PQ's detailed roadmap aims to present sovereignty as a low-risk technical transition rather than an emotional, volatile gamble. What fairy tale are you guys reading? Low-risk technical transition. Is this guy out to lunch completely? Honest to God, like...
Yeah. Gary, you've heard me say in the show before that PSPP is not a stupid man, highly educated. I was even giving him a pat on the back in terms of how eloquently he speaks to both the French and the English population of this province and the world when he has to, on how well spoken he is, and he's a very, very intelligent man. And recently, when he came out with the Blue Book, which basically outlines their entire strategy, not into minutiae detail, but something that's made available to the public. I read some of these things, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the same intelligent man I was willing to give a pat in the back not a year ago in terms of common sense thinking and taking a more pragmatic approach to things. And this is what his Parti Québécois, the party he leads, comes out with as a platform for separating from Canada and being self-sufficient moving forward. What? Moving forward from year 15? It's absolutely preposterous that he thinks that the Canadian government would be willing to take a 10 to 15 year approach to letting the child leaving the home. I think he's dreaming in Technicolor, Gary. I don't know how he thinks that the population that he's really depending on to vote yes in a referendum would look at this and honestly say, yeah, we're in good hands, we'll be fine. I just think he's way out in left field on this one. Like, I mean, big time, Gary, not even small, but huge. And I'm not saying this because, I've been living in Montreal my whole life. French wasn't my first language, but I speak French. And I'm not saying it because of that. I'm saying it just by looking at that document and the sheer lunacy that anybody will accept this as de facto. Great, this is exactly how Quebec's going to move forward. And Canada's going to say, great, go ahead, we're going to help you out. I am worried, Gary, as a Quebecer, of the damage that A, this blue book is going to do, B, it doesn't communicate the real scenario of what Quebec is going to have to go through. And I think for him to be the leader of the Parti Québécois and potentially the province of Quebec, you have to be more honest and upfront of what kind of sacrifices myself as a Quebecer, yourself as a new Quebecer, and Quebecers who've been living their whole lives for generations, what pain they're going to have to go through. There is no pain defined in this document, Gary. So how much better is this from the propaganda we got in 1995 and the referendum before that, the first referendum? Gary, I'm just beside myself. I cannot believe the I won't even call it propaganda. It's just not being honest and truthful. It's here's a pair of rosy sunglasses. Continue to wear them until we become elected. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked. I'm actually sad that this kind of document came out because up until this thing came out, Gary, I was giving the gentleman the benefit of a doubt. Now I really see his true colors. And if I'm seeing them, I'm sure a lot of potential voters are smart enough to see right through it as well. And I would think, especially our business leaders here, it's their money. The big companies, their investment money might dry up because of this.
Well, Eddie, the polling has shown that the majority of Quebecers don't want a referendum. However, when you break it down into the younger demos in Quebec are supporting a referendum on separation. For whatever reason, I'm not sure, but they are. Now, whether they've been brainwashed somehow into thinking that this is going to be the be-all and the end-all, I don't know. But when you lump them all together, at least the last polling I saw, it showed the majority of Quebecers don't want to even contemplate holding another referendum. And I think a lot of people, the baby boomers, even the millennials, realize after 1995 the harm economically that cost this province, did to this province. And the fact that here we are in 2026 and there's still bruises and wounds that are healing from the 1995 referendum, which has slowed any investment dollars coming in. And that's why, especially when Legault became premier, why he was heavy into throwing all kinds of taxpayers' money at a number of business ventures, because that's the only way he could get them to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then even then, a couple of them just turned around and like Amazon just said, you know what, we've had it with a number of things. And they used, they shied away from the fact that one of the distribution centers was trying to unionize.
Right.
That obviously in the back rooms did play into it. And they can deny it all they want, but we all know what Amazon is. But I'm sure, too, the rest of the rules and regulations regarding language and everything else in this province played into that decision. They walked away, like, what was it, 5 5 of these centers that have been built in 5 years in the province. That's a significant investment that they just walked away from. Walmart, if you recall, all of a sudden, they were setting up a big distribution center outside of Montreal.
Right.
And they all of a sudden stopped. Said, oh, we've reevaluated our overall plan, and we're going to pour money into opening a few more stores and upgrading a number of stores.
Right.
That was an easy way out. But I think they were starting to see the writing on the wall, too.
Don't forget about Norvold.
Yes. Yes. There was another one. And a lot of provincial money went into that, just trying to get them here. And we all know what happened there. Gonzo. And now Legault's gone. And Frechette came in, and she was, talking about offering an olive branch to Anglophones in the province. And PSPP was talking about, Anglophones don't have to worry. We're going to make sure that we understand that, they're incorporated into our society. And both those parties are refusing to take part in an English language leaders debate before the election in October.
Yeah.
Well, now that's really reaching out and trying to embrace Anglophones in the province, isn't it? That tells me exactly where Anglophones stand when it comes to those two parties. And it's too bad we don't have a stronger liberal and conservative opposition in this province that would give Anglophones and others a chance to park their vote elsewhere and hopefully either put them in government or at least give them a strong opposition. Because these guys, like Frechette, I'm beginning to think it's not going to be any better under her than what it was under Legault. And if PSPP wins, he's not going to worry about anything other than getting his way with a referendum, getting the referendum set up and let's get going, And we've had a couple of comments now about Quebec and separation and thinking that it's entitled to a number of things from Canada, even upon separation. And another one saying, French Canada is a conquered society. And it is, but it retained its language, it retained its religion, legal system, and majority status. Like, really? When you get right down to it, and I know, I'm going to anger some people, but the fact of the matter is, it's once again, Trudeau spent 10 years apologizing to anyone and everyone for whatever. And we have spent, since the battle on the Plains of Abraham, we have been, as the winners, if you will, or the offspring of the winners, if you will, we've been bending over backwards and just saying yes, 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 yes to whatever Quebec wants. It has to stop. It has to stop. How does a province as rich in resources and a population the size of Quebec and a city that was number 1 in the country and now is number 2 population-wise, at least for now, and at one point was a center of investment and is no longer, how do we qualify for pretty much half of the equalization payments going to provinces? Explain that one to me.
Indeed.
I know I'm as thick as a fence post, but to me, that's a pretty easy thing. Anyway, Let's talk a little bit more about a couple of other things. The strategy exploits current friction between Ottawa and provinces over immigration, healthcare funding, and resource management. Now, central to the blueprint is a highly contested strategy regarding currency, border controls, and the division of national debt. Huh?
Yeah.
The division of national debt. Okay. Take it away, Eddie. I have nothing for that. That I can say
I mean,
publicly.
yeah, you're bringing up, just three or four of the different areas that are actually outlined in this blue book, um, and just how I'll use the term nonchalant, how nonchalantly they speak about and portray every element that they require in order to become an independent Quebec that has such a tremendous dependency on what Canada is willing to contribute or further contribute to the province of Quebec after it votes in a referendum potentially to separate. Every one of their clauses and elements pretty much has some element of dialogue or dependency on Canada. Um, the national debt, Gary, I mean, this is something that all provinces borne as part of the country's national debt for, one payment or subsequent investment or project money handout. There is money that each and every province also owes as part of the national debt. What Canada's going to say? Oh, you know what, Quebec? Forget about your component of the national debt. Well, if you read through the book itself, the document that was put out, it seems that way. I I I I just don't get how they were able to generate some of the planned numbers and figures that Quebec is going to be great on its own, and we will no longer need Canadian money to survive, or the money we're getting now in no way is going to create problems if we don't get it from them anymore. They're really not doing the math. And look, I'm not an accountant, Gary, but a couple of weeks ago when all this stuff was coming down, I put pen to paper. I don't know how the hell they're going to do this without having billions and billions and billions of dollars sitting someplace, for a transition, B, a transition without Canadian money, and C, until they start making their own money, until the investments come back to the brand new country of Quebec. We're not talking about a decade here, Gary. We're talking decades. And I just don't understand how they will be able to sustain the livelihood that Quebecers may be enjoying today after a separation vote or when they actually completely become independent. I'm a Quebecer. I see that I'm going to suffer from this, regardless of what they do to Anglos or not, or how they don't listen to our voices all the time. Quebecers, my next door neighbor, my friends who are Quebecers are going to suffer. The parents of my friends are going to suffer. The children of my friends, French Quebecers, are going to suffer from this, Garrett. From what I'm seeing, look, I'm not trying to be a naysayer here or just shooting my mouth off for nothing. Looking in between the lines, Gary, and just putting very simple arithmetic together, I really don't understand how PSPP can propose that. Oh, it's going to be great. We're going to be better off after a referendum vote. It scares the crap out of me, man. I'll put it bluntly. It really does.
Well, they're getting pretty much half of the equalization payment, so that's wiped out.
Yeah.
We can't balance a budget at the moment in this province, even with the equalization payments, and being one of the highest taxed areas in North America, as it is.
The highest tax province or state in the Americas, North and South.
So, take away the equalization payments, Can you imagine what the taxes are going to be like in order to try and come close to balancing the budget? And can you imagine going out onto the international money market and asking with your hand out, asking for investment or a loan to carry you through as you establish a new country? Good luck. You're going to be laughed back to Quebec so fast that you won't even realize what hit you. It's just, it's like they're dreaming in Technicolor. Like,
Let me ask you, Gary. I told you how surprised I was that this comes under PSPP's blessing in getting his document out. What's your take on PSPP on this? Because I know you were kind of agreeing with me that he was really a smart, really smart and sharp fellow. So once this came out, what was your first impression when you looked at this of PSPP once this came out? What was your impression? Your knee-jerk reaction when you saw this?
my knee-jerk reaction was Plomadon has gone right off the rails. Just totally lost it. This is just, it's almost like reading a child's comic book.
Yeah.
You know, if it wasn't so serious for the average Quebecer living and trying to get by, especially right now, when we have Alberta, a small group in Alberta, a vocal group, talking about separation and pushing a question on referendum going forward and all of that, which is making investors nervous. So, and it's not only for Alberta, they're looking at it from a Canadian standpoint. If you're looking at putting in a major new plant here in Canada, you're going to think twice, because you've got them on the east and you've got them on the west. Like,
yeah.
And you don't know what the hell is going to happen next.
Yeah, you know what, and that's the whole thing here. I mean, we have the war drums rattling out in Alberta, and then we have the war drums banging here in Quebec. Not only are they creating potential investment loss for their provinces, they're going to take Canada down with them. On top of that,
Exactly.
that's the really scary part. Apart from what these guys want, these provinces want, or the leaders of or the separatist movement of these provinces want, the collateral damages thereafter, even if they don't separate, they will be there, and it's theirs to bear in terms of blame. They will never bear responsibility for that. I mean, I always point the finger in the other direction, but this is really starting to look like a potential disaster for the Carney government. If you know, God forbid, if the provinces do have a referendum and by some miracle they do separate, and then you know what, if the referendum votes are no, the collateral damage and mopping up after this to ensure that that investment continues in this country, and also investment in Quebec and Alberta. I mean, all this wheeling and dealing in terms of the new economy of the world, the new world order, if you want to put it, and Carney making a tremendous effort along with all kinds of people throughout Canada, business-wise, liberal, conservative, NDP, it doesn't matter what their political backing is, going out there and finding business from other countries to invest in Canada. Can you imagine this goes through, how all that work is going to potentially dry up on account of the referendum movements in Alberta, the separation movement in Alberta and Quebec? All that hard work is going to be for naught. And then what? We're going to have to go back to our dependency on the United States. This is all coming to mind right now, Gary, and I'm quite honestly, I'm starting to shed bricks about this. It's really scary stuff coming up over the next 4 to 5 months. The referendum in Alberta, the election in Quebec at the end of this year, during the fall. November, November, the
October.
elections in the United States, October in the
Yeah.
United States.
Yes.
My
Or November
goodness,
in the U.S. and October here. Yeah.
yeah, there's just so much going on that's beyond the government of Canada's control. And I guess we'll just have to wait until November and December to watch the dust settle and look at 2027, what the outcomes of all of this are going to be. I really don't see a very pretty picture here for us, Gary. It's starting to look a little dismal.
Eddie, it's going to be a really tough. Later this summer, it's going to really pick up, and into September, between Alberta and Quebec and the campaigns, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a really tough time. And of course, looking over our shoulder at what's happening south of the border with the midterms, yeah, the year is going to end in just one big cluster.
Mm-hmm. You're seeing that too, huh?
Yep. Yeah, I can see a couple of extra bottles of scotch being consumed along the way. Anyway, and the one thing that we did not mention in our discussion this evening, and this is the wild card in both cases, First Nations.
Yes.
PSPP seems to be downplaying the role of the First Nations, and I don't think he's going to make any friends on the First Nations side the way he's talking about it. And in Alberta, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the First Nations, first of all, they want nothing to do with any talk of separation. And secondly, out west, they have all kinds of treaties in place. And here, there are some treaties, and then there's the land issues as well. So, good luck with that, guys, because you have to deal with that. And I'll tell you one thing. Once you start pushing the First Nations, their chiefs are not going to be as easy or as cordial, perhaps, as some of our politicians in Ottawa who are just content to roll over and play dead, or roll over and say, tickle my belly, and we all go away happy. So anyway, speaking of going away, our takeaway is the separation blueprint reminds us that national unity is not a permanent state. It requires an ongoing functional proof of value that the federal system is struggling to provide.